Okay, guys, we're going live.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Okay, friends, welcome. Welcome to what will prove to be one of the most exciting shows you've ever, ever, ever been a part of. It's Conversations with Aibee, and it's a new show that takes the art of conversations one notch forward. All of us as human beings, we like to talk, we like to debate, and hey, as Nigerians, we love debate. So, what we're going to be doing conversations with Aibee, we're going to be sitting down having a conversation, sipping tea, but dissecting issues that affect our lives. We're going to be learning, we're going to be laughing, we're going to be playing, but we're going to be serious. So, right now, the not at all, not in the least. And we can legitimately say that the world is confused. Everybody is making a mistake. Everybody is putting their foot in their mouth. World leaders are making mistakes. CEOs of organizations making mistakes. And it's never been more difficult to be a communications professional than it is now. And so today we're going to have a conversation that most of us are dying to have. And that is one about how to talk to everybody. How do I talk to my parents? How do I talk to those who work with me? How do I tell everybody what's going on and share my frustrations as a CEO or as the head of government? How do I communicate during this crisis? And speaking today are three exceptional professionals. Quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, they're top notch. They're the best in what they do. Tunji Olubodi is vice chairman of Vedansil, and TJ, as it's popularly called, has had to brand, has had to rebrand, has had to teach communication, and has had to start several projects that enable people to tell their stories right. TJ has the unenviable job of telling you how to tell your story when things go very bad. TJ will be one of my guests today. The second
Thank
guest
you.
I have is someone that I think has become more popular, becoming a pope that he has communications. Emeka Okpara is Emeka Okpara is vice president of Airtel Nigeria. He's seen 7 name changes of that company. He's dealt with guest crisis in the telecommunications industry. And I don't know how he manages to come out on top of that, looking debonair and suave. Emeka has to tell us how he keeps his cool when it looks like there's madness everywhere. The third person is Shola Salako Ajulo, and I'm going to be bringing her into the studio shortly. Shola is one woman riot squad, a consumer rights activist, but currently she serves the governor of Ekiti State as the special advisor on communications and strategy. Shola has 3 decades of doing communication and a great part of those decades of fighting on the side of the consumer. I'd like to invite all of you to join me and let's have a good time with Conversations with Aibee. Welcome. So, Emeka, we'll start with you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
You've learned the art of fighting. Tell me, Emeka, how does it feel to have the roof caving in on you?
Strangely, it's exciting. It feels exciting for anybody who is into crisis management or crisis communication. It's just like, when you have morticians in the mortuary, you got to bring in dead bodies. I once interviewed a casket maker when I was a journalist, and I asked him the question, "How do you feel when people die?" He said, "Maker, honestly, I, I feel sorry for those who have lost people, but I have to feed my family. So we'll sell the caskets, and we'll go attend the funeral, and we'll say sorry to them." That's almost exactly what it is like for me. Each time there's a crisis, it brings out the best in me. And indeed, seriously speaking, crisis brings out the best in all of us, or the worst. But having then done it several times, like you said, the roof caving in on me, literally, I'm getting used to dealing with crisis. And of course, the best way I've tried to manage crisis is being prepared for crisis. You can't be prepared for any specific crisis, but you should be prepared just in case. And that's what they taught us, just in case. There are all kinds of things you must do to get yourself ready just in case. So that is how it's been for me. I trained in the art of crisis management. I have a crisis management plan, a plan I have tested, a plan that is connected to the entire business, um, a plan that has actually been signed on by everybody in the leadership of the business, a plan that has been tried and therefore tested. And so this is how I have managed to survive in the past probably 18 years when I started dealing with big time crisis in what used to be Econet until
Mm,
present day.
mm. Wow. Okay. So Emeka says it feels exciting having the roof crashing in on him. I don't know about that. TJ, you have had the responsibility of hand holding people when the roof caves in. Perhaps it's exciting for Rebecca. How do you live your life? The roof is crashing. Your client is dealing with some of the craziest situations in their life. How do you help them stay and believe that everything is going to be well?
All right. So thanks for having me. My own is usually an attitude of here we go again. Um, and there are different emotions that you go through. There are different stages of mental that you're going through,
Mhm,
depending on what kind of crisis you're dealing with.
mhm,
It's a good crisis if you have a client who previously has listened to your entreaties
mhm,
about how to get prepared for a crisis.
mhm,
It's a bad crisis when it's something that happens on you suddenly
mhm,
and not only threatens the business, perhaps threatens the livelihoods of people, or if peradventure, it also involves loss of lives. I've been in a situation working with a client in aviation who had a plane crash. There was a crash sometime.
yeah.
Despite their long, enviable record of safety, but inevitably one day we woke up and there was a crash. And it so happens that my name is on the list of those to be contacted when this kind of situation happens.
Mhm,
So typically, what you do is you go into action mode.
mhm,
First, you assess the kind of information that you have,
mhm.
and you're fishing for the facts.
Okay.
But don't forget what typically happens during crisis is that the truth becomes a casualty. The second is to define your stakeholders. Who are the people who are immediately important to be reached with the correct information at that point in time, and so that you can manage their reaction and emotions. The
Mhm,
third will be to then put out a message based on this understanding. So I guess for me, it's really like pretty much like Emeka said, it's that you have to be like a Boy Scout. You have to be prepared. All right, because crisis. In fact, I always say to people, it's either you are coming out of a crisis, or you're in a crisis, or you are going into a crisis. Whether the crisis is self-induced or it's one that happens on you suddenly. Just imagine that you're not in a crisis. So your mental fortitude must be such that prepares for that in a
So your mental fortitude must be such that prepares for that in the
Okay, so we have to prepare for the inevitable. Casualty. As someone who is, I pretty much imagine, understand what that means. Where do you deal with that problem? And sometimes we imply that truth is relative. Are you sure the truth when dealing with it?
Okay, I didn't hear half of.
I'm not sure, Shola.
I didn't hear half of what you said.
Emeka?
Shola? I didn't hear half of. You. I can hear you.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't hear half of what you said.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I said, how do you deal with it when, yes. Shola, can you? Okay, out becomes the casualty.
Okay.
So Emeka, yeah. So Shola, you hear that? And I say, dealing with government, you understand exactly what that means.
Okay.
How do you deal with it when truth is the casualty? How do you help people see the truth in spite of the crisis?
Well, thank you, Aibee.
Thank you, Aibee.
Okay, we're having feedback on this one.
Oh, don't worry, you're good from this end, so go ahead.
Oh, okay, great. When you have to deal with communicating with people in a crisis, especially from the government perspective. I think one of the critical things that would help you is the empathy you have built with your electorate or your citizens before the crisis situation actually rolls in. Once you have put some work into that, whenever you are facing a crisis, you will have to draw from that account.
Okay.
When you have a bad situation, is when you don't have any credibility anyway. So having whatever you say in such a context, it's difficult to comprehend or to accept. So that's why it's important that public officers must invest in building credibility and equity in the time where there are no crises.
Okay.
Because it's going to be your most important arsenal when you are facing a crisis. So if you have done it, then truth doesn't have to be a casualty anymore. Because you have been known to be open to the transparent, and you tell the people as it is. So even in the midst of the confusion, in the midst of the fake news and propaganda and all, and a lot of emotion, you stick with what you have been known to do. It eventually costs you. That's the first thing I would say.
Building equity, building credibility. I like the things you've said. So I'm going to come back to you, Emeka. How do you build equity? How do you build credibility? You know, how can I, as a communication professional, help my people build it? Credibility, equity. That's the currency we spend during crisis. How do we build it?
Thank you, Aibee. Now, the point is, I recall reading a book by Charles Fombrom, one of the good writers for CSR, and in that book, talking about reputation management, he says that companies that invest in people in the community, they do get by in terms of crisis. So the investment you make during crisis, or rather for crisis, is made way ahead of time. So as an organization, when TJ was talking about preparation, it's not just talking about putting out fires or going to the media. It includes investing in the future. So let's take Airtel, my employer. Okay, so we spend good money building schools, we spend good money investing in people, we spend good money paying for medicals, spend good money in all manner of social investment. We also spend good money in communication, explaining who we are, what we do, and how we do it. At the end of the day, we are building a reputation, or as we say in the trade, enlarging or building up an emotional bank account. Now, this emotional bank account is what you then draw when you have a crisis. So you sound more credible, you sound more believable, you get more sympathy. The journalists who are going to report this crisis will remember, when you visited them. So you have to look at your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? You have journalists, you have the community, you have your employees, you have government, you have the regulator, and so on and so forth. So you do your stakeholder mapping, segment all of them, and determine beforehand, not when the crisis starts. Before time, what do these people need? What are their expectations of you as a business? So part of the job of a crisis manager or a communication person is managing expectations. Okay, so you list what their expectations are of you and begin to address them to the best of their ability. No organization can replace the government. So you do the best you can in building a school here, helping with the road here, creating employment opportunity, empowering women, so on and so forth. So when you look at all these things, our government wants you to, like today, the Federal Ministry of Education asked me to zero rate some sites so that students can use it to study during the COVID lockdown. Or NCDC say I need MiFi so I can get data. I need you to give me zero rate so that people can call me free. These are investments you make ahead of time. And that's how you build up that emotional bank account. And when you do all of this, which starts from identifying who your stakeholders are, and identifying what their expectations are, and managing those expectations. And then it means that when time comes, you need them. You just go in and say, guys, I'm in trouble. Shola says something about need them. You just go in. Truth. When you start playing games with a crisis, then you're going to suffer, no matter what you have done. So if you are honest to people, and just come up front to say, listen, this happened, and that's how they will feel for you. I always tell people when they complain about Airtel, Shola had some experience. Way back when she was doing Popo High School. What I will tell you is that the Airtel network was built by human beings, not by God. So there will be problems, there will be failures. And when they happen, the most important thing for you as a consumer rights advocate is for me to resolve that crisis in a way that you are happy. Not that it will not happen. God created man, and man failed him. Who the hell am I? I run a network, and there won't be mistakes. But how do we address that mistake? That is customer experience. So for me, that's how you prepare and plan for crisis.
Okay. So
Don't let us go there.
I know. Okay, because don't worry, I'm even going to go there. I'm going to go there, but before I go there, TJ, we need to send Emeka an invoice, right?
Yes.
Advertising
For advertising Airtel.
We need to
I
send
just,
Emeka an invoice right now.
may I just jump in on the issue of equity?
Yes,
I
please,
just want
please.
to, I just want to point out three things from the stuff that the maker has mentioned. And I think these three things are very important. And I say this not just from a PR crisis management point of view, but I also say it for every brand and service that's always intent to win the heart and winning hearts. And one is the issue of trust.
Yeah.
And that trust is tied directly to the value that people place on your product or service. When people value your product or service, when it's highly rated, at times of crisis, what you find is a certain empathy or sympathy for your position, whether it is stated or not. There's a certain deposit I can draw from. Will always advise people is to ensure that the integrity of their product or service is intact. So you must seek and aim to be the best in class. The second thing that helps to build equity, and if I look at the cosmos of the stakeholders, it's usually the internal stakeholders, especially the staff.
Yeah.
In 9 out of 10 situations, we find that clients take their staff for granted. And this happens in many situations. They want to launch a new product. They want to go ahead with a new initiative. People who are the outside know about development more than the internal people. So there's a certain level of discontent. It might be latent, but it's always there. Such that when you then need their help to be the advocates and foot soldiers in sending out the particular message stream, you don't find that kind of winning support from internal stakeholders. So we always encourage clients to make sure that from an information and communication point of view, they place higher premium on their staff. But they are the biggest staff the biggest one that I can have who will believe in you. Imagine you're launching a product and somebody asks them from the outside, oh, we hear you're launching something tomorrow. And the person goes, I don't know, I'm just hearing about it just like you're hearing. I mean, that's a minus. The third thing for me that I need to talk about is the core value. Now, every organization usually has the core value. That's tied to a set of vision and mission and all of that.
Yeah.
But again, what experience has shown us is that many people just see the core values just as a fact. It's not something they really believe in. Again, if you have a situation where the clients actually go ahead to believe and operate, internalize and activate their core values, most often than not, they will not be such a deep at the deep end of the pitch where they can be salvaged. So these three perspectives I think are always important to reinforce and strengthen the issue of equity. And to that extent, when you then need to relate with your different stakeholders and publics, your job is not that difficult to establish.
Okay.
So that your job is not very difficult to establish. So I thought I should throw in those three aspects as part of what helps to build equity when it comes to messaging and content, and the issue of trust or lack of it.
Okay, so that all of this is well and good if you're a corporate, your government, and there's COVID-19, and people are dying. You between the moment of knowing what killed them, especially if you're Nigerian, where you are not allowed to do autopsy. So between knowing what killed them and knowing what killed the fish or what killed the chicken, you're trying to figure it out. Your job is to tell people what is going on. How do you get the message out fast enough in a Nigeria where people tell stories even before the person who has the problem has heard it? Somebody needs to help us here. How can government give confidence in this season. And it's not just Nigeria, America is worse, but everybody's confused. Where do you start from when you're confused? How much equity building can help you?
I think a lot. If I pull we've had COVID, the fact that we have a visionary kind of leader, even at the time when COVID was still being noised around and people didn't think it was going to show up in Nigeria.
TJ, just be preparing my invoices.
That's why I'm laughing. I'm actually preparing
I didn't mention any name.
You don't need to.
So we already had the vision, and we set up a task force for about 3-4 days after the first case was found in Lagos. So because we already have put that story, communicating with our people based on was a lot easier and faster. A whole lot of things that before we even found our own indexes. So what I would suggest, in situations like a COVID-19 where there's panic, a fear, uncertainty, and it's very morbid. It's very morbid. I think that any good leader in public space must be able immediately get his people's attention and focus everybody in that direction and let them know exactly what you know. There's no point pretending to know it all when you don't know it all. But if you are open with your people from the onset, they will flow with you, they will go with you. And when it is going to oscillate, that journey is not very smooth. It will keep oscillating. But as it oscillates, they wait for you because they have seen you show leadership, they've seen you show empathy, and they've seen you being sincere. There's nothing that beats sincerity. And I want to say that one of the challenges that I've noticed with public communication, as in government to people, I think if there's anywhere in any part of governance that is still very weak, it is the public communications part of it. Government being able to communicate and keep a communication line open with its people. I guess because we have history of untrustworthy leaders, we have history of an environment where people didn't care what government did. A whole lot of bad habits have been picked up, and we are unpackaging all the rot that we have learned. So it's still a struggle getting government to understand that you have a responsibility to communicate with the people all the time. See what's going on in Lagos, for instance. The state government or governor has, by being there, he's the one carrying the weight of all of it. And he's constantly in everybody's face, constantly telling them, this is so far we know, this is how much we know. His commissioner for health is, we were doing exactly the same thing in Ekiti. My governor was constantly we're constantly having addresses and broadcasts and all that. And as soon as those broadcasts is on, our team of communication aides, we go on all the platforms, explaining every step of the way in the language that everybody can understand, and carrying them along. So because we opened a channel of communication that was wide enough for people to feel we are all together. Mm-hmm. You'll find the people always waiting to say, what is our government going to tell us to do? Mm. And then they obey. So it was a lot easier for in an environment where you have leadership that is so self-focused, mm-hmm. and not focused on the people. It's difficult for people to trust you have their interest. Mm-hmm. And so even when you're telling them the truth, they are very skeptical to receive it. So being able to show that all in this together, we're all vulnerable. We don't, in fact, at the early stages, my governor even had to take a COVID test. The whole of this state was verified throughout the period we're waiting for the test to come back. And as it came back negative, well, if they sign with him. What that did for us was that it bonded us with the people. The people could see that even the governor was vulnerable. So everybody was waiting, and we were constantly in touch with them. Every case that was reported in Ekiti, Mr. Governor will tweet about it by himself. Then we will explain to them the circumstances of that case. Where did the case come from? We've been able to contact trace all his connections and all that. Those things made our people because they knew that somebody was on top of all of this for us. The days we are late in updating our number of cases. The way they will be like, why have you not updated it? Why is there NCDC is saying that we have two cases and you are still saying we have one. You know, we were engaged. And that was what really helped. And that's very needful in a crisis communication situation like this.
Okay, so what I hear you say is the need for consistent information.
Yes.
But also the need for transparency.
Yes.
Transparency, credibility, consistent information is key. Okay, that's what you're saying. But for many people who believe that public relations is about hiding the truth, Emeka, I'm going to need you here. PR is now PR. Now make you just do PR. And I know that all of us as communication professionals have had to deal with that. Just do PR. You know, PR being explained as be economical with the truth. But we're saying here that people are not daft. They need to know. How do you handle telling the truth, especially when it is a difficult truth?
Okay, again, I go with a good example for you. Several years back, we had a crisis in our call center across the country. It was a well-intended idea by the business to outsource our call centers. But to be honest with you, it was mismanaged. Many things came into play. First and foremost, these are people we call legacy employees who have been in call center for a long time. They're happy going to work and earning their pay. Suddenly, you come up to say you want to outsource them. And the company they're going to outsource them to is based in India. And these guys say, no, you can't do that. Of course, you and I know about India skepticism in Nigeria. Just like you have Nigeria skepticism elsewhere. These things happen. Now we are suffering from China skepticism, as you know. All right. Okay. So at that time, I had a different opinion as a PR person, and I was like, guys, we need to break this down first and foremost to the employees. Get their buy-in. I think TJ made a point about people who do not pay enough attention to employees. Every communication must start from within. So to even respond to him, we can never launch a product unless we do an internal launch. So in times of crisis, like what I was telling you about, we are supposed to carry the employees along for a very long time. But we went out to do a press conference to announce that they're going to outsource our call centers. These guys just say to themselves, no way, this can never happen. And the moment they made up their mind, that was it. Now, you can imagine at that time, Facebook was not strong, WhatsApp wasn't strong, it was BBM. Trust me, it was BBM. And they weren't even very savvy with BBM and text messages. These guys were moving physically to NTA, to AIT, to TVC, to Channels Television to protest. Being a PR person, I'll just put a call across, and the story never comes on the news. All right, I'll put a call across, and the story will never come because I didn't want my company to be embarrassed. But guess what?
The
The
guys
guys
then went back
and regrouped.
and regrouped.
They started running
They started
SMS
running
campaigns.
SMS campaigns.
They started running
They started
BBM
running BBM
campaigns.
campaigns.
I lost it.
I lost it.
At that
At
point in
that point
time,
in
I
time, I
couldn't do
couldn't do
anything.
anything.
And that is
And that
why
is
we
why
say
we say
today,
today,
the era
era
of social media has taken media
media
management in the
management in the
sense
sense
that we're
that we're
doing
doing
it out
it
of
out
all
of
of
all of
us.
us.
Yeah.
You just will have to be proactive
proactive
in the
in
way
the
you
way
deal
you
with
deal.
your stakeholders. So you want to sell an idea, you want to launch an initiative, you want to do whatever, you need to get the buy-in of people first and
You want
foremost.
to do whatever, you need to get the
So
buy-in of
in
people
in
first.
1998, for example, when Cadbury Nigeria, where I used to work, decided to restructure, they were actually going to fire drivers, the restaurant people, some junior staff, all the security men, they're going to fire them. But it was also a good idea. That was when outsourcing started. And we had to market this whole plan over a 6-month period to the union, to the staff, to the media. The day before we announced this, and I drove around the media with my boss, explaining to them exactly what we are doing, how we are going to pay these guys off, how we are going to give them new employment, how the canteen manager, who was a staff of Cadbury, now had to leave. But we're offering her the canteen to run. So you explain the soft landings that are associated with this restructuring. So sometime, or most of the time, it's about trust. It goes back to that word, trust. If you have built trust with people, and you have to work hard to build trust, the believability level or credibility level will be high. When there is an issue, they will sit with you and they will even be helping you to deal with it. I mean, the amount of money we lost with the call center crisis, the amount of equity, what I call emotional bank account, we lost at that time. With the National Assembly, they were summoning us everywhere. They were claiming that the company has been taken over by Indians. So you can imagine when I showed up at the Lagos State House of Assembly and I went there, I told my CEO who came to Abuja, I said, "You are Indian, don't come. These guys say all of us are Indians, so allow me to go." So I went with my HR director, who is Nigerian, my government
My government
affairs
affairs
director, who is
director, who is
Nigerian.
Nigerian,
When we
when
showed
we
up at
showed
the
up at
Lagos
the
State House of
Lagos State House of
Assembly,
Assembly,
I said to
I
them,
said to
"My
them,
name
my name
is
is
my name is Deepak,"
Deepak.
and they started
And they
laughing.
started laughing.
I said, "But
I
you
said,
guys
but
say
you guys
everybody
say
here is
everybody here is
Nigerian. I'm
Nigerian.
Deepak,
I'm Deepak.
Deepak
Deepak
Emekopa,
Emekopa.
and my
And my
colleague
colleague,
Jibril Chopra."
Chopra.
Everybody was
Everybody
laughing.
was
I said,
laughing. I
"Listen,
said, listen,
it is not
it is not
true.
true.
We are
We are
Nigerians,
Nigerians.
but the
But the
company
company
is owned
is owned
really by
really by
Indians. But this
Indians.
is
But
a
this is a
Nigerian
Nigerian
company.
company.
I'm
I'm
Nigerian.
Nigerian.
Jibril is from
Jubril is
Lagos.
from Lagos.
Osando is from
Osando is
Abia.
from Abia.
All of us are
All of us
Nigerian.
are
We are
Nigerian. We are
directors in the
directors in
business.
the business.
You won't believe
You
it.
won't
I
believe it.
spent
I spent
probably 10
probably
minutes
10 minutes
at Lagos State
at Lagos
Assembly
State
before the
Assembly
story
before the
changed.
story changed.
So
So
sometimes it's about
sometimes it's about
awareness,
awareness,
being
being
what your people
what
call
your
him
people
being
call him
woke.
being woke.
You need to be
You need
woke
to be
now. You
woke
need to
now. You need to
understand what your
understand what your
customers, what your
customers, what
staff,
your staff,
what your
what your
stakeholders, all of them
stakeholders,
need.
all of them need.
So the only
So
way
the
to
only
manage
way
this
to
is
manage
to
this is
build
to build
trust
trust
on a
on a
consistent basis
consistent basis
with your
with
various
your various
stakeholders,
stakeholders,
engaging with them
engaging with them
regularly
regularly
and making
and
sure
making
that you're
sure
not going to
that
take
you're
them
not
by
going to take them by
surprise.
surprise.
So if you have
So
any
if you
new
have any
plan,
new
any new
plan, any new
initiative,
initiative,
you share with
you
them.
share with them.
I feel sorry for
I feel
Shola,
sorry for
for
Shola,
example.
for example.
Somebody like Shola
Somebody
has
like
to
Shola
deal with
has to
things
deal with
that
things
break
that
every
break
day,
every
every
day,
evening, every morning.
every morning.
I don't know how she
I don't know how
sleeps,
she sleeps.
but
But
the truth is
the
that
truth is that
again,
again,
Ekiti State
Ekiti
government
State
and
government
Lagos,
and Lagos,
and permit me to
and permit me
digress,
to
have
digress,
actually
have
showed
actually
that they are
showed that they are
prepared,
prepared,
and that's the
and
essence of
that's the
having
essence of having
professionals doing the job.
professionals doing the
They
job.
are prepared
They
for
are prepared
crisis.
for
So
crisis.
when
So
crisis
when
comes,
crisis
they
comes,
pull out the
they pull out
manual
the manual
and they begin to
and they begin
play
to play
in all the
in
various
all the
sectors,
various
and it's
sectors,
easy
and it's easy
for the governor
for
to
the
issue.
governor to
I
issue.
remember his
I
first
remember his
statement
first
on the
statement
index
on
case
the
in
index
Ekiti.
case in
I was
Ekiti.
like,
I was
wow!
like,
I kept on
wow!
sharing
I
it
kept on sharing it
because it was
because
practiced, it was
it
deliberate,
was
it was
deliberate, it
truthful,
was
it was
truthful, it
honest.
was honest.
I remember
I
when
remember when
somebody died in
somebody
Ekiti,
died in Ekiti.
I think the teaching
I think the
hospital,
teaching hospital,
and the
and the
son
son
who was a
who was a
beneficiary of the state
beneficiary of the
also
state
wrote a
also
letter.
wrote a
The
letter.
governor
The
responded. I
governor
have never
responded.
seen
I have
stuff
never
like that
seen
before.
stuff like that
It
before.
tells you
It
about
tells you
preparation.
about preparation.
And
And
again,
again,
with that statement
with
you
that
made,
statement you made,
people in that state
people in that state
begin to
will begin to
believe him. His
believe him. His
credibility is a
credibility
lot
is a
higher.
lot
I'm
higher.
not sure he
I'm
thought
not
that
sure he
out. I'm
thought
sure
that
the
out.
guys
I'm
who
sure
work
the
for
guys
him
who work for
thought
him
out those
thought out
ideas.
those
But
ideas.
that's what it
But
is.
that's what it is.
Building
Building
trust,
trust,
getting the
getting
people, carrying them along, giving them regular updates. Don't take them for granted. And you are sure that crisis will come. It will always come, but you get out of it. It's like turbulence on an aircraft. You get on an aircraft, it starts having the pilot will tell you, relax, bags will fall, plane will shake, but when we pass through the cloud,
it will be good. Great. So the plane will shake. The plane will shake. And that's important. TJ, part of what you do is work with corporates. And right now, people are cutting salaries. 50%, 20%, 80%, or 0%. How can you keep your staff, your stakeholders, in-house people, the people who are in day for house? How do you keep your staff at this time of crisis? How do you get them to understand, especially if you're a small or medium-sized company whose earnings are very bad or whose earnings are at zero? How do you communicate in-house? TJ.
Okay, all right. So, I think it also some of the things that I've talked about. I'll just give two things. One is clarity, the consistency putting across. The clarity in the sense that we have to own up and acknowledge the situation we have all found ourselves today. The reality is what it is. So there's no point in beating around the bush. This is in the fact that we don't know what holds, because we can't honestly talk about extended periods of time because of the pandemic, unless otherwise a vaccine or a cure is found. The third, is consistency. The fact that you have to remain true to your essence. I think when people see all of this, it's easier to then relate. What needs to happen has to do with called empathy. What people are trying to do is deal with a lot of situations that we're seeing. A lot of us do, not even as of first week in March, not to talk of second week in March, but third week in crystallized. So we need empathy, and we need to be able to bear the message of hope. Now, in doing that, it's also to acknowledge the fact that people are dealing with a lot of issues. So there has to be clear interventions that makes it possible to realize that, number one, they are not alone. Number two, because it is what it is, we need a strong attitude to be able to work through it, because we don't have to realize about able to take action that are outside of people. I remember, for instance, during the period of lockdown, absolute lockdown. Every day we were making sure through the HR that we're talking about. Once a week, mandatorily, we do a Zoom everyone. But is keeping. And I remember that at least one or twice occasion. Actually do palliative, not externally, internal palliative, by sending some basic food stuff round to people, and actually even to the extent of sharing money that's available. And the funny thing with the money we share was that it was equal across. And that had nothing to do with salary, that had nothing to do with allowance. Now, that's not to say that we have a lot of money, but what it shows that we're going through it. And when you have your back to the wall, that you know who is in your corner. It doesn't also mean that it's unpalatable, because the inevitability is that many of us don't know where we're going to earn income from for the next couple of weeks or months.
Tell me about it.
So when you're in it together, that's the truth. But when you're in it together and you're open and transparent, people will know that you're dealing with a genuine situation. So I think integrity of purpose is very, very important. Finally, the thing is also that whatever happens, whether you make people, whether you convert their employment times or whatever, we will make sure that nobody is left behind, either in the immediate or in the future, because there's a transition mode for everyone. Virtually every business has gone back to factory setting. So we are trying to see, okay, so what's the next thing that can happen?
Yeah.
The second is that you need resources, whether it's skills, whether it's aptitude, to be able to tide over. So people have also now come to understand that things will not be the way they used to be. So, for instance, from the week coming, we will be having a sit down with a lot of our own people to say, look, your mind might have changed even from working for anyone, being at home for so long. What's your plan? And then we'll see how we can accommodate ourselves in the career that they want to pursue and in the plan that we have in terms of our new model of practice. That's the most that we can do in the circumstance. But also to be seen that we're fair to everyone. So it's not just to wake up one day and say you don't have a job anymore, without really holding people by the hands and helping them to manage the transition, whatever that transition will be. So I think the constancy, the consistency is important. Integrity of purpose is very important. Earning people's trust through the message of hope and empathy that you bring is also very important in the circumstance. The truth is that as a business, and especially as a country, we're in dire straits. So you have to look at the bigger picture. So this is not an isolated situation that is an exception to you as a company or an individual. But I also always say to people, the most important thing is try and keep head above water. On the sort of time that we can say the worst is over, and then we can then start looking at the problem. Because if you do not keep head above water and you get submerged, there's no way we can talk about tomorrow and what needs to be done as alternatives.
Wow.
So that's our message.
I mean, I've learned quite a few things from you, TJ, just now. Very interesting things you've said, especially as I hear you talk about the matter of being able to carry everybody along and nobody being left behind. Now, I'm going to there's a question on your screen. Tony Onyema is asking. He says, is it possible to communicate truthfully during a crisis?
Yes.
Shola, you want to engage this?
In fact, I was going to ask you to. So please let me respond to Tony.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. And I am going to say that in the place of crisis or in the time of crisis, your best position, your most defensive, healthy. Your best position is to be in the place of truth. And I'll tell you why. Every time you keep something away from the people, especially in this day of social media and worldwide, you risk somebody finding that thing out and then showing you up to be a liar or someone who's economical with the truth. That means you erode the credibility you have built with the people over time. That place of truth, saying it exactly as it is. When you are talking about truth in the context of public communications, you have to understand that if you bring out every detail of a situation or of an issue, but the facts, just hit on the facts, the truth and the facts. Stay with them. As long as you stay with them, you will, the storm will blow over. Because when you stay with the truth, you don't have to go and ask what did I say yesterday when you are going to be asked to say something the next day. Because you will always have to say the same thing. If we told you that we only have 2 cases wake us up at night, shake us in the morning, we still will have only 2 cases because we cannot cook up cases for ourselves. But if we have been vague about it, if we have not been specific to you that this is the situation, every time somebody comes up with the most spurious facts, you look like, oh, I have to now shift position. And once you start shifting positions, you start losing credibility, you start losing the trust of the people, and therefore your case is already full. So in the place of crisis, the first thing we find out is what are the facts of the case.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do I present that fact to the public is going to be dependent on the messaging you want to communicate to the different stakeholders you have identified. But everything you say must be the truth, must be factual, and must be sincere. When you don't know what to say, as in where situations where even you are confused, it's important that you let the people know. I can only tell you as much as I know. As we discover more information, we'll let you. The people feel more comfortable with that. For you to give them like impression like, oh, this is not a problem. We will be over this. This is not a problem. We'll soon be over it. It will soon be okay. It's not a problem. We don't have a problem here. When it starts to be a problem, you become casualty.
Mm-hmm.
So it's best to just stay with what you know and stay with the truth. Yes, you can speak the truth in the crisis.
So wonderful. And people are insisting on this. So I'm going to ask, there's a question on the screen, and it says, is it not better to tell a harmless lie than the ugly truth, than allow the ugly truth prevail? It says, in crisis communication. But someone else has said, what if the truth puts the system at risk, security risk? The big old security risk under which we all hide. If we tell the truth in this matter, the country will come crushing down.
Aibee, that's what I said.
Yeah.
When you have a situation, say the truth. Now, in crafting your messaging, you try as much as possible not to create unnecessary panic, unnecessary tension, and all of that. But if the truth is bad, find a nice way to say the bad truth. Because it is when you don't tell them the truth and they find out. That is when a real crisis starts. Because nothing you say from that point.
I think for me, fundamentally, is the fact that the moment you tell one lie, you need 10 other lies to cover that one.
Exactly.
And then, that way you're gonna sleep. There's no way. And they will have you for lunch. But I think it's also important to recognize the fact that information management is not about divulging all the information you have. So you don't necessarily have to tell a lie, but it can be discretionary about how much information you put forward. Especially if it's something that can be misconstrued or people can't process it well. And in any case, there are certain mandate conditions where you can't put hazardous information. For instance, if there's an unfortunate accident, aviation accident, you cannot put out any such information until the kin of that victim have been contacted. So there's nothing you can do about that. So I think it's the same perspective that we need to look at it. But I would also like to look at some other thing, which is what breeds the trust deficit. And that is the fact that sometimes the crisis itself is either contrived or people who capitalize and make money from that crisis actually fuel it. We've seen situations like that. And that includes, unfortunately, some of us who we can say we are practitioners, because the more that thing festers, the more it is that, the opportunity for this thing. So we need to be wary of that, especially when you are managing expectations of different stakeholders, and especially the interests of your principal, whoever that principal will be. So there's always the need to have checks and balances internally. There's always the need for you to be able to mine through the information and sift through what are the facts. There's always the need for us to be conscious of the fact that it's not everyone that is necessarily in the same wavelength of thought or line of sight with what you're looking at. You have to be wary of that even internally, because there are people who are just waiting to capitalize, and they are very good at capitalizing on such contrived crises. And we've seen it happen time and again in corporate settings, in individual settings. And because history will always repeat itself, it's also the reason why it's important. And this is something that I like for us to take away. Um, Communication during crisis is not something that you just leave to anybody because the person looks good or the person speaks well. Emeka made allusion to this at the beginning. It's a specialty. You need to recognize that it's not meant for everybody. You might be the CEO, but if you don't have a good crowd-facing ability, then please don't stand in front of a camera. You're going to just make it worse. So during crises like that, let it be that number one, I always say to my clients, only one person is allowed to interface with the public or with the media. Only one person. Anything anybody has to say, channel it through that person after it has been processed and evaluated. Otherwise, you have even more crises when different people are saying different things. Number two is that you ought to have played the scenario. You know, I think they call it sometimes vulnerability audit. You need to have done that if you are on top of your game, especially in this age and time. I always say to people, you can wake up tomorrow, and I say this to my wife all the time, because she has a tendency to believe everything sometimes that you see on social media or see online. I say, look, 90% of these things are contrived. And so don't be surprised if you wake up tomorrow and you say a story about yourself, you just be like, ha, I wasn't even anywhere near that time. And we've seen it happen. All right, I've seen it happen to myself. So again, it's something that you have to be prepared for, which is, I think, the message that corporates, individuals, organizations, people who have responsibility to different stakeholders ought to agree with. But when you talk about the issue of trust and the truth is constant.
It's constant.
You can't alter the truth. The guidance says conscience is nurtured by truth. You can't change the truth. The truth is the truth. Even if you try to cover it for 20 years, one day, just one incident, somebody will bring it out. So it's always better to err on the side of what is right, what is just, what is fair, what is truthful. That way there will be consistency, and I always talk about that consistency. I think, frankly, that's what I want to say on that. Thank you.
So I wanted to add to what
to
TJ
what
said.
teacher said.
There is something about timing when you want to talk about the truth. And let's be honest, as he said, it's not just everything you know that you say. There are times when you will say them, sometimes you wait. It doesn't make you dishonest. I saw a question that come through Tony or one from Doctor. You have to wait for the right time. Let me give you an instance. Sometime in the early 2000s, as I was going home, I got a call from a director in my company back in the heady days, asking me to go to Delta State Government House in VI. Okay, so when I got there, I saw the governor of Lagos State, the governor of Delta State, the governor of Akwa Ibom State. The governor of Delta State just lost the mom, so there was a condolence register outside. I walked in there and I saw them. I was like, wow, I didn't know that's what we're going to meet. I was just a manager, and I mean a manager. I had bosses in the office. So they told me, are you a maker? I say yes. You're the PR manager of EcoDat? I say yes. You need to issue a press statement now announcing the removal of your chairman and the appointment of Mr. Adeusi as the acting chairman. I'm like, huh? They say, yes, go into that room there and write it. I don't know who Adeusi is. I didn't know how to talk about. I'm supposed to issue a press release. Dr. Adekombi might be familiar with this story. Okay, so I went into one room, sat down. I Googled Adeusi. I was able to pick up a little thing. It was Commissioner for Finance, Lagos State. And here is my chairman. I saw earlier in the day. They want to fire him. Chairman, not even the MD. So I drafted a press release announcing that my chairman had been fired. But I flipped it to say the company now has a new chairman. I ignored the former chairman until the last paragraph, where I said the board now thanks him for his services. Then of course I went to them, read it. They said, did you know this before? I said, no, I just been thinking about it. So I put it together. When I left the place, I was scared to death. How on earth, if level 4 manager issue an announcement that my chairman had been fired? So I called my CEO to say, look at what happened though. He said, Emeka, I'm not interested. I called the deputy CEO. He said, Emeka, I don't want to know. Don't tell me anything. I called the chief
Chief
legal
legal
officer.
officer.
He says,
He says
they fired the
they
chairman. I
fired the
said, yes,
chairman. I
Emeka,
said, yes, Emeka, that's all.
that is your business. I don't
That
want
is
to
your
know.
business. I don't want to know.
Go and deal with it.
Go and deal with it.
Manager, all the chief officers and directors said they don't want to know. And I have to issue that statement that night. So I said, okay, well, again, what I'm trying to push here is sometimes you need a lot of wisdom and maybe grace of God as well. Let me tell you this, because then I then prayed and said, God, what am I going to do now? All right. So it came to my mind that I should write an email. So I wrote an email to the CEO, attached the press release, the CEO, the deputy, and the chief officer, informing them what transpired and what I'm going to do. And then I issued the press release and went home. I said, well, tomorrow morning they sacked me. They sacked me. In the morning, every newspaper reported that my chairman had been fired, and I'm the one that signed it. Goodness me, I didn't leave home till midday because I thought they wouldn't let me into the office. But I did go into the office, and the chairman was fired, and a new chairman was appointed, and the company continued, and the media were happy that they got their story. But the point is, at the time, you have to balance, look at it. I agree that I work for the organization. I wasn't about to join any party in the battle. My own was the organization. Yeah. So you must decide as a corporate communications person to work for the organization. So when people ask me, Emeka, how have you survived up till now? 7 or 8 MDs, 6 name changes, 8 shareholders. The reason I survived was that I didn't play the politics. I simply acted professional. So every time it was the interest of the organization. And the consequence, obviously, was that if the CEO or whoever was unhappy, they fired me. So I made up my mind that if they fired me for being professional, so be it. So I worked strictly to the professional ethics and my conscience. So I pursued the interest of the organization. The shareholders some of them will invite me home. I will tell them story, I won't go. The CEO will ask me to come for dinner. I will claim some story. And these are some of the things wisdom. So you avoid being seen in certain places. So, because if you begin to pander, because maybe you need money, you need to be promoted, so you begin to pander to those things, they'll catch you and they will waste you. That's the language we use. They'll waste you. So, if you just stay strict, when they say, Oga, sorry, I can't come, or Oga, so you stay strictly by the thing and pray that, God will save you because that's what it is. Nobody in the business can save you. All those directors and shareholders have their interest, but you must stay professional and act as wisely as you can. TJ put it, okay, or rather maybe Shola, when you work for government, it's a different kettle of fish. There are interests, and very often my colleagues in government do not even sit where these conversations are held. In my own case, probably I'm lucky, so I'm in ESCO. I know what's going on, but some of the directors of PR in government, they just get told by somebody. And you write a story. Sometimes your boss sees the story and say, Shola, where did this go? Come on, you didn't talk to me. You are trying to get a story out. Somebody has an interest. So politics is a different kettle of fish. So from what I have learned, it's a more fluid situation than in the corporate. So, but still the straight and narrow path is to make sure you have a plan that is tested, a plan that people buy into. If your boss and your colleagues in the business buy into that plan, if you also back check, because I heard TJ saying something like, those things happen, and a plane crashes, you cannot just publish the manifest until the families are contacted and all that. So it doesn't matter how much pressure a journalist puts on you, you got to wait. So you must also have a legal mind. So you have to work with your lawyers to check what is illegal or what can cost a company money from a legal point of view. So you backcheck those things, and that's why companies have what we call business continuity plan. A BCP now encompasses beyond communication, it encompasses everything. So the lawyers are there to guide you. The engineers, I mean, if the attack, if Boko Haram bombs our base station in Meduguri, for example, the entire Meduguri will go off. If it's a hub site, it will affect all the northeast. So you need engineers to tell you that the outage that's happening in Meduguri is not just in Meduguri, it's happening all the way to Bama, all the way to Jigawa, and so on and so forth. So you have to be part of a network of internal business continuity plan for you also to be even informed. The problem we have again, most of us in PR, is that we stick to our so-called communication and you forget that you work for a business. You must be literate as a business person. So you know exactly what is happening. If it's happening in networks, if it's happening in commercial, if it's happening in customer care. If you stay in your silo, think you want to speak English out of it, it won't happen because the issue is beyond grammar. The issue is fundamental. It's a business situation which you must deal with.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, Ibim,
Please, please.
can I add to that? Because
Go ahead.
I work in the government, and politics and government and the governance go pari passu. And so I understand, I can relate to what Becca is talking about in terms of interests and all of that. But I think for my employers, I think it's a lot easier for me than for most of my colleagues who are doing this job for other governments in the country. In Ekiti, my boss pays so much attention to the issue about communications. Maybe because we're coming from the background of what happened in 2014, where there was so much miscommunication and lies and propaganda that kind of painted him differently from exactly what he was able to achieve. So this second time in our exco, for instance, we have three communications professionals in there. The commissioner for information is in exco. The special advisor on communication I'm in exco, and the chief press secretary is in exco. So we are where the issues get discussed. And from that point, most times people feel communication what to do after you have taken the decision. For us in Ekiti, it is not. Communication is part of the decision. So it's made it a lot easier for us to get our messaging right most of the time. I mean, from the feedback we get, it looks like we're not doing too badly. But yes, you have to manage interests. And I agree also with the fact that there's a whole lot of information I have, but it's not all the information that I have that we put out in public space. In Ekiti, we have a structure. For instance, I don't speak for government. I am the back end communications manager. They have appointed who speaks for government at every time. And once we agree on the issue and we pass the messaging together, we give it to whoever is going to say what for government. So there's no conflict, there's no confusion. I know my roles. My role is to make the communications work for everybody, give direction, decide on how we want to position this, how this should go out, what should go before what, all the strategy and all of that. I do that and work with my team members who are the spokespersons for government. We even agree talking points. We agree what is going to be said, what is not going to be said. And timing is also very important. I find that because we are in a political environment, everybody feels once something happens, you have to respond now, 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 now. Now, we've had some near misses because of that, because you have other people who feel you are too slow in responding. So they just go on their own personal platforms and go and say something that puts us in bad trouble, you know? And it's trying to get our politicians to understand that professionally, it's better for you to be accurate than to be early. Early is good. Early is good. But accurate is better. It is important that before you go out there, even okay, thank you. Before you go out there to say anything, make sure that every fact you've checked with every issue owner, have gotten the facts of the case, you know exactly what the nuances of it is and everything, so that when you come up with crafting messaging, you are speaking to every aspect and you are hitting every nail. Now that may take some time. So you may not be able to respond as soon as a propaganda hits the social media. So we have our guerrilla tactics. We have the ones that we have people who are designed to quickly flash something to keep the people engaged while you go and put the total messaging together. But when it concerns things like governance, like what we're dealing with COVID-19, we cannot take chances. We can't just rush to go and speak. In fact, the very first day Mr. Governor made his speech, we set up a 48-hour briefing, media briefing. Every 48 hours, we're briefing the media on whatever is happening in Ekiti concerning COVID-19. So everybody in Ekiti is very aware. They understand. We have a program on local radio stations. We call it the Saka. There are about 5 or 6 radio stations in Ekiti. We actually work with all of them. They give us a particular time every Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And my team is on air. When they're on one radio, all the other radios link up. So everybody in Ekiti who's listening to radio, which is our most potent means of communication to the people, is hearing the same thing. And we take time out to deal with every step of what government is doing, what people need to do, what has been done. In fact, you won't believe that also helped us with our feedback, because when we first started distributing palliatives, we had gone with the structure going to local governments first. You understand? So the local governments will take the food to the people in their local government environment. But we got such a bad outcry that, the people were doing it, were using for the political, whatever, they were doing it for politics. So they're only giving to their party people, they're only giving to the people they know. They were not really giving it indiscriminately, to the people who really need it. Also, we came up with a plan with the food. We have a food, how do you call it? A food, what do you call that? Kitchen or something, I can't even remember. Well, we have that, and we sat down with them and we planned this. So we went on air and put out a telephone number. It was a WhatsApp number. And we said to the people, send us the name, the address, the local government, and the telephone number of anybody that you know needs this palliative. In one day, we got over like 5,000. And then we start taking it door to door. We will take it to them. They will say, who gave you my number? We'll say, this person gave you a number that you need this. By the time we did that for like 2-3 weeks, the whole of the environment understood that this was not political. And that was how we were able to douse that. But that came from the fact that we had this open channel where we're talking to people, we're getting their information and feedback regularly. So even though we are in politics, trying to help politicians understand that professional communication is needed even in there, and that it's better for you to do it professionally than to do it in the end. When you do it professionally, you get better equity. It's still a of war, but we are gaining grounds, because we can start. They're starting to see how effective it can be if we work according to the laid down rules of how to manage information. So we will. I don't think it is Uhuru yet, but I think to a great extent we've been able to make some progress in that area.
Wow. Okay. So honestly, it's been very, very interesting. Have they raised quite a few things. Someone says public communication suffers because communication is not considered in policy formation, and that happens a lot, especially at the government level. And others say very often people who are managing communication, corporations or government, perhaps do not even do the detailed work, the work of sitting down, vulnerability audit, or even having a communication plan. There are not many companies that have a communication plan and a crisis communication plan. And these are some things that people should be able to put in. But let me ask, and TJ, this comes to you. You've had to work with governments in doing branding and stuff like that. How can we, now talking, and you are the head of a public relations group. So I'm talking to you sitting in that position. How can we begin to get both the public and the private sectors to understand the critical need to mainstream communication? How can we get them to understand that for every policy, for every project, for every plan, you need to mainstream communication? How can we make that happen? Because clearly, if there's something COVID is teaching us, the people who use the professionals appear to be doing a better job than those of us who don't. So how can we get this How can we make this front
Many people in positions of government now see that and understand that they cannot throw money and throw bad attitude to any given situation where they think they can ride roughshod over people just because they want to have their way. So the way I think this can happen is that number one, you have to be deliberate and intentional. So if you want to succeed as an administrator, as a technocrat, as a governor, you have to make sure that as part of your decision-making process, as part of your strategy and ideation process, you have communication experts in the mix. If you don't, it's just again like we found in real core marketing, where people spend a lot on new product development, and when it comes to the critical aspect of advertising and promotion, they then suddenly think, hey, what's that? Now they think it's not something to be factored in. Meanwhile, everything that speaks to success or otherwise actually rests with advertising and promotion. So they have to be deliberate and intentional by ensuring that they have professional communication specialists as part of the strategy mix whenever they are formulating policies. The second thing is that they need to also understand that today the dynamics of today's environment has changed. A lot of things have become so democratized, especially with how people access, process, manage, consume information, and the action that they take thereof. In the past, it used to be that you can railroad people to some extent when we used to talk about broadcast. Today it's narrowcast. So people form their opinions through the prism of what is their understanding from what they see are the motives or lack of it that they understand. So long before they meet you, long before they see you, they formed an opinion based on what they read somewhere, what they saw somewhere, what somebody said of you. And so if you go back to what we talked about, the vulnerability or you have to understand that at every point of time, at any point in time, you're at risk. So if you understand that, then you need to also ensure that you seek every credible means to get across to people, to make sure that you're able to get your message and messaging across. So we talk about the man, the medium, and the message. Those three elements are very important for you to be able to make impact. Because ultimately, the perception that is built about you, your programs, your policies, or whatever, or your products or services, is entirely dependent on what people feel from the sum total of how they come across to you, how they connect with you, whatever the medium or platform is. Number three is to understand that this thing costs money, and I don't think we should run away from that fact. Rebecca spoke earlier on about the bank where you deposit assets before you draw from it. The money might not be money you spend overnight. It might not be money that you spend in one fell swoop. In actual fact, when you also talk about money, it might not mean cash. Money might just be what helps you to build that bridge of trust, of friendship, of access to the people who will matter when the chips are down. But if you do not understand that if you view it as money, then it helps you to put it in context because ultimately it is also about nurturing a relationship and building and sustaining a relationship that will help you going forward. If you do not understand this, that's why a lot of people fail and then they're wondering what happened. And this speaks to the last thing that I also mentioned on this. So you might be a very intelligent person, okay? But I've also come to learn in 30 something years of being in business that your intelligence takes you only thus far. Again, America mentioned something, it's called wisdom. And I think that's tied to emotional quotient. So much so that today, many forward-looking corporations are looking for people who have higher emotional quotient than intelligence. Because you have people who have average intelligence, but if their EQ is very good, then it means that they'll be able to navigate. And I can't forget the classic case of a situation I had a few years ago where a bank, one of the frontline banks, was looking for a new MD, and there were a few people in contention, including some of the subsisting EDs. And the person that I think everybody expected should take it sort of lost out. They said, why? Because his life revolves around office, church, home. So it goes from the office, it goes home, it goes to the church and home. So that's his entire world, that's his entire milieu. So what happens to the issue of social connection and all of that stuff? So for me, it's important that we then take the issue of communication and the essence from that perspective. When you need to bond with people, you need to be able to relate with people. Brand is about experiences, about affinity, is about the sum total of what people feel about you. Now that thing doesn't happen just once; it happens in several ways and in several dimensions. And so we've spoken today about the good ones, the ones that are prepared, and I think it's not for nothing that, just like you said, in places where they see this as part of very important to the mix, in Lagos, in Ekiti, in corporations where they are forward thinking and very prepared, they do not just happen along. They make things happen because they are deliberate and they are intentional. So I can easily talk about Ekiti. Anshala, you still need to send us an invoice for this, or we'll send you an invoice rather, where you can see the governor took advantage of a young man that was prevented from coming into his own house by his own father because he was coming from Lagos where he was supposed to have been quarantined. And what happened? A few days later, the governor brings this father in as part of the, I think, the committee for eradication of COVID. That happens when you are thinking on your feet. That happens when you see the big picture. That happens when you are in on the final details of converting what can be a potential slip into a real PR opportunity. And we've seen it. In the same state, we saw a young boy that, the governor made a promise to say, well, you can come visit me at the governor's mansion. And lo and behold, the man remembered one day and said for the boy. The boy comes with the mom, and the number of hits and the visit to the website and all of that was quite humongous. So these things can be contrived. They cannot. So you can talk about the feel good nature of it. It's really because at the end of the day and ultimately, human beings are about connection. So even now we are supposed to be doing social distance, but we are still connected in many ways. In actual fact, we're even more connected now than we'll ever be if we didn't have this whole pandemic happen. So I have my mom calling me like every day, my dad calling me every day. I mean, under normal circumstances, the first thing they ask me is when they mention my name, the first thing is, so where are you? But at least they know now I'm not only in Nigeria, but I'm also quarantined in a particular spot. So, that connection is always very important for us to understand. And this is something that we should not take for granted, whether we are politicians as governors or we are corporate titans in the C-suite. It's very, very important that we should always do whatever gives us the easiest access to people in a way that they can trust our sense of judgment, they can trust our emotions, and they can trust the fact that we are genuine in even with all our foibles.
Thank you very much, TJ. And yes, thank you. I know that the invoices are getting ready. I was just going to announce that data is live. But if I announce that, then there must be another invoice. So there's a question on the screen, and this will be our last question because, quite frankly, we've gone over a bit. And I'm putting out because it's something that appears, and all of us can speak to this very briefly. And it's in this era of social media, in this era when even traditional media borrows from social media. Someone says, what is the best way to communicate with people who are holding adamantly to a certain untruth because it is in tandem with their expectations? And of course, I can start with that. I mean, Shola, right now your essay, communication and strategy, which means that already I believe you're a billionaire, even though I know you well enough to know that you wouldn't touch a dime. So how do we communicate when people decide they will just fix on the untruth? When we believe that it is this COVID-19 is just a lie. By the time we mix agbo with ginger, add a bit of cola, put small whiskey inside, we'll be fine. How do we deal with that? And we can all take this round one each.
Thank you,
Thank
Aibee.
you, Aibee.
The first
First
thing I
thing
would
I
say
would say
is
is
you have
you
to
have to
come to
come to
terms with the
terms with
fact
the fact
that
that
you can never
you can never
convince
convince
everybody.
everybody.
No matter
No matter
how
how
cogent
cogent
your facts are, some people will just never believe it. And so there's no need trying too hard with them. what you aim for when you are dealing with a situation whereby people are already taken by their own perception of what the truth is, which may not be, may be totally baseless, but that's the way they believe it is, their perception is their understanding. What you try to do is try to put out the facts of the truth in that circumstance to the general public, but target the people who you know it's easy for you to convince them to change their minds. What people don't like you telling them is that if I believe that Shola is a thief, they don't like you going to tell them Shola is not a thief, because immediately it puts a crisis of confidence on their own self. So they would be in the defensive, no matter how much truth you throw at them. To keep defending the fact because they don't want to be caught as being misled. So they are convinced that that is what the truth is. If I want to communicate to people like that, I'm not going to go at them frontally and say Shola is not a thief. I will start from the premise of let us assume, for purposes of argument, that Shola is a thief. How have you established that fact? And then from that point onwards, I start putting out facts for them that would force most of them to consider and say, okay, this doesn't add up. Okay, this doesn't add up. You kind of persuade them towards moving from that their tight position to a place where they can be malleable to be able to look at what, okay, maybe I can get in more facts to be able to form a different opinion. But if you come at them every time they say Shola is a thief, you come at them and say Shola is not a thief. She did not steal this. She did not steal that. The more you convince somebody to give his opinion, the more convinced he is of that opinion. So there's no need. I mean, we do a whole lot of that. I mean, you know, propagandas and all kinds of perception altering stories about my principal and all that and all that. We don't come at you to start fighting you. No, 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 no. What we do is we put out the facts and the truth without addressing you directly. But we just put it out there because for me, many times, somebody like my boss, he doesn't have time for frivolity. So he will tell you when should I be responding to what somebody just posted there, about me that is not true. So I explained to him, sir, yes, it is not true, but there are millions of other people who believe you, who when they read that thing, it shows a seed of doubt in their hearts. And because they start wondering, is it true? If we don't put our own truth out there for them to be able to weigh against this lie, they would assume that they were right all the while. We didn't defend it. I think TJ needs to mute his mic. They were right all the while. We didn't defend it. That means it must be true. So when people are convinced about a position on your brand or on your government or any whatever you're working with, don't confront them and start fighting with them. You lose them because they will never listen to anything you have to say. You have to find a way to entreat them with alternative possibilities of that position. And when they see those alternative possibilities of that position, many of them will be, mature enough to change, to say, okay, well, maybe I didn't know that before. Then they start looking at it differently. But some of them are recalcitrant. They have their own agenda. They've made up their minds about it. They are not, you can never win everybody. You can only work to win the critical mass. So
That's it.
You put that
Yes. TJ and then Emeka.
Okay, so for me, the point, there is a fundamental human right for you to believe what you choose to believe in. And there's nothing anybody can do about that. Depending on which side of the divide you stand, what you choose to pick as your truth, and so on and so forth. Because when people are participating, and when they are already in a particular position that they are not willing to pray, then the truth will always suffer.
Yeah.
and that's when you then get half truths and so on and so forth. So for me, it is pretty much like Adishola said. Put out what is the fact, put out what is the truth, and expect people to be able to make their own deductions and conclusions from what should be the basis for their decision for taking a stand. But you must be consistent and you must be continuous in expressing that same line of defense that is the truth. It's the only way because I mean, like we've established, PR is not about telling. It's not about half truth. It's really about depicting what is in the various shades in which it is established. That's it, pure and simple. But there's little you can do. I mean, a good example of things to point is what's going on in America today. There are certain things that are going on that you wonder, can people reason like this? But you know, we also come to understand the point of mass hysteria when you're already partisan in a particular direction. So good reason wouldn't make sense. The truth wouldn't make sense. In fact, it's become so bad that even your safety becomes jeopardized because, for instance, you choose to believe that you should be wearing a mask. That is macho for you not to wear a mask. So you have administrators who are speaking with both sides of the mouth. The common sense for me then would be to make your own judgment in terms of what sides of interest. Because whether you like it or not, the reality of the virus is still out there. So if you choose not to wear a mask that can prevent you contracting the virus, then you become part of the statistics inevitably at some point. And frankly, there's no apologies for that. It's your choice. There's it's your choice.
Who just don't believe.
Okay. I guess I'm next.
Yes.
Okay, so the benefit of speaking last, I agree with what everybody has said. Thank you very much. But now let me add whatever your objectives that you set out to achieve, and that will include perhaps changing people's perception, changing people's opinion, changing people's mind. So whereas I agree that sometimes people have their minds made, and there isn't so much you can do about it. I think one of the good measures of a successful crisis management or communication management situation is our ability to win converts, no matter how difficult it is. All right. So in the end, I will measure my people based on how I was able to change opinion. In the political space, unfortunately, there's so much cynicism in Nigeria today. In fact, so much cynicism across the world. Being propelled by one individual. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Everybody is saying what could actually never be said before.
Yeah.
And when you come on, people say to you, America, come on. But that man is president. How far can any human being get? He became the president of America. Who are you? Shut up. So you ask yourself, you're not even governor yet, not to talk about becoming president. People use him now as a standard.
But Emeka, you're the Pope, you see. You're the Pope. So that trumps any president.
I'm going to come to my papacy very soon. But the truth is this, again, we guys in government need to learn one thing. And I've been telling them. The PR manager of a governor automatically loses credibility. And I'm sorry to say, a spokesman go around the world, even the spokesman of the Vatican, they don't believe him. So government people must learn to use third parties. And I've always said it. In my entire life, in the company I work for, 18 years, go and check. You can hardly find any article written by me. Maybe one or two in 18 years. But tell you what, I've written over 50 with pen names. everybody will say, what do you expect Emeka to say anyway? What do you expect Shola to say? What do you expect Femi Adesina to say? So when the guy is saying, don't mind him, he's talking for his stomach, automatically he has damaged the communication process because of credibility. He is defending his boss. That's it. So people in government communication particularly should learn to use third parties, use talking heads. It gives a lot more credibility to say that even if it's Emeka, you can imagine something happening in Ekiti, and Shola says, Emeka, I want you to help me break this news. Emeka, now, waiting concern Emeka self. Nobody will be able to, they will just say, this guy, we know him. He must be speaking the truth. And 3, 4, 5, 6 Emekas. The government can plant people everywhere. It used to be have people in the media, but you and I know that the media now is like good.
good. So
Everybody is a
everybody is a
journalist
journalist now.
So you find
So you
influencers. I
find
don't mean the
influencers.
influencers
I don't
they
mean
talk about here.
the
There are
kind
people
of
who are
influencers they talk
credible,
about here.
who
There
can
are people
communicate.
who are
That's
credible,
right.
who
So you
can
use them
communicate.
to break
That's right.
news.
So you
You
use them
to
to
tell
break
stories.
news. You
You
use
use
them
them
to tell
to write about
stories.
the business,
You
to
use them
explain
to write
government
about the
policy.
business, to explain government
When
policies.
you do it yourself,
When you do it
automatically you
yourself,
injure
automatically you
the process.
injure
The
the
communication
process.
Now,
process.
talking about the truth,
Now,
Wow.
talking about the truth,
you can tell there are three types of
you
truth.
can tell there are
There's
three
the
types of
truth,
truths.
there's the whole truth, and there's nothing but the truth. All right. So when you want to address situations, you find
You
those who will
find
tell the
those
truth,
who will tell the truth.
find those who
You
will tell the
find
whole truth, and find those who can tell nothing but the truth. The PR man, the communication person, will tell nothing but the truth, and that is facts. Nobody going to kill you for stating the fact.
nobody going to kill
State
you
the
for
facts
stating the facts.
and walk
State
away.
the facts
Allow
and walk
somebody
away.
somewhere to
Allow
bring in
somebody
opinion.
somewhere to
Into
bring in
every
opinion
opinion you put
into
will be used against
every
you.
opinion you put will be
In
used
fact,
against you.
at the
In
time it
fact,
is done,
at the
you
time
might
it
be
is
you might
done,
be fired.
you might be
Your boss
fired.
will say you
Your
mismanaged the
boss will
process.
say
They'll
you
sack you
mismanaged
for what you
the
say.
process. They'll sack you
So
for what you
I've
say.
had situations
So
where
I've had
people
situations
call
where
me to
people
ask for
call
something.
me to ask for
I'll
something.
plead with you to
I'll
say,
plead with
can
you
you
to say,
can
can
you
you
can you protect me? You say
can you
yes.
protect
I'll
me?
give
Say
you all the
yes.
information.
I'll give you all the
And
information.
you will say when the makeup
And
para
you
was
will say
contacted,
when the makeup para
he
was
never responded to the
contacted,
questions.
He
Or
said
he
please
SMS
never
to
go.
responded
Emeka's
to the
phone was not
or
responding.
SMS to
Or calls
Emeka's
to
phone
Emeka
was
went
not
not responding.
responding. Or
I'm
calls to Emeka
safer
was not responding.
when you
I'm
did not quote
safer
me,
when you
but
do
I've
not
given you
quote
what you
me,
want because
but
I
I'm
need to
giving
tell
you
the
what you want
story
because I need to
that
tell
you
the
are looking
story
for.
that you are
Somebody
looking
just
for.
said media surrogates.
Somebody just said media
That could be the word.
surrogates. That could
Use
be the
third
word.
parties. They
Use
have more
third
credibility
parties. They have more
because
credibility
they'll say you're asking, you're working
because
for your salary.
they'll say you're
Emeka works
asking,
for
you're working
Airtel.
for your salary.
Yeah.
Emeka works for
So
Airtel.
beyond
So
stating
beyond
the
stating
facts about what
the
happened,
facts about what
all the
happened,
other side
all the other
stories and
side
other things,
stories and
there are
other things,
facts behind
there
the
are
figures.
facts
So
behind
you
the
use
figures.
somebody,
So you use
surrogates, third
somebody,
parties, to
surrogates,
tell
third
you.
parties,
It
to
helps
tell
to
you.
build
It
credibility.
helps to build
But of
credibility.
course, it goes
Wow.
But
back
of
to what
course,
TJ
it
said
goes
in the
back to what
beginning.
TJ said in the beginning.
The trust
The
you have built
trust
ab
you have
initio
built ab initio
is what you're going to then bank
is
on
what you're going to
when this
then
thing
bank
starts
on
happening.
when this
You
thing
know that,
starts happening.
like
All
You know
right.
Shola,
that,
Shola was probably a good
like
hire.
Shola was probably
They
a good
knew
hire.
what she
They knew
stood
what
for
she
over the
stood
years.
for over the
So
years.
she won't go there
So
and
she
change
won't go
overnight.
there and change
Of course,
overnight.
some of us will
Of
stone
course,
her.
some of us will
So
stone her.
they know that
So
using
they know that
Shola
using
is a
Shola
strategy
is
of
a
itself,
strategy of itself
on its own.
Yeah.
on its own.
So she
So
says it the way
she
it is.
says
So
it the
it
way it is.
also
So
goes
it
down to who
also
you
goes down
hire
to who you
to work
hire
for you.
to work for you.
So
That's right.
the earlier they stop hiring
The earlier they stop
journalists,
hiring journalists,
thinking that journalists
thinking
are
that
the best people
journalists
who
are the
can tell
best
the
people who
story,
can tell the
the
story,
better you hire
the better you
professionals,
hire
not just
professionals,
journalists.
not just
Journalists
journalists.
are always fond of
Journalists
pushing
are
stories.
always fond of pushing
It is not
stories.
about pushing
It is
stories.
not about pushing
It is
stories.
about
It is
telling
about
stories.
telling stories.
In telling stories, you
In
then
telling
have all the
stories, you then
facts
give
and all the
all
facts
the
behind the
facts
figures,
and
and
all the
take
facts
care
behind
of
the
the truth,
figures,
take
and
care
take
of the
care
whole
of the
truth,
truth,
and
take care
nothing
of the
but the
whole
truth.
truth,
And
and
take
nothing
care
but
of
the truth.
nothing but the truth. Wow, it's been an exciting evening for me, and I've learned a lot of things. And I'm hoping that all of you who have been part of this broadcast have learned as well. Let me truly thank my amazing team. I don't know if we really can have it any better. I'm going to start with, you people, I have to respect the papacy. So I'm going to start with the Pope. This Pope.
God bless you. God bless you
Let
immediately.
me
God bless
thank
you. God bless you immediately. Immediately.
I'm telling you, thank you. Let me thank you, Emeka. It was great having you share your experiences, and you were very frank, very forthright. It's made a lot of difference, and I'm sure a lot of us have gleaned from it. Shola is, as always, spot on. Shola, thank you so much. I'm not surprised at all that Shola has delivered in this manner. Um, she's one of our shining stars, and she continues to outdo herself and everybody else. Shola, thank you. TJ, what can I say? When we have a master in the game on a show, what can I say? My dear friends, it's been wonderful, wonderful Friday evening, a good way to start my weekend, and I hope a good way to start yours. I'll see you next Friday, same time, and we'll go live on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you very much, and have a lovely, lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
pleasure to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks to
Thank you,
everybody
guys.
who's watching. Thank you, Baba.
Thank you, Baba.
Closing credit. Oh, yes, it's been a beautiful, beautiful evening, everybody. And I'm hoping that next Friday I'll see you again. It's 4 o'clock, and it will be a very interesting conversation. Thank you.